What is wrong with the people who watch
You guys have
content?
problems.
What is wrong with
You all
y'all?
have issues.
Are you okay?
I'm not going to answer for it. I was concerned about the content. Everyone on the video loved it and had commentary.
Did your parents hug you as children?
Bro, and they was watching it. Like, they was watching all the facial expressions and shit.
Right.
I was horrified. They were like, hey, this is cool, man.
Yeah, they were like in it. People were talking about their favorite variations of the toys that we watched.
And I was thinking we was dropping knowledge. They were like, no, let's continue the story. We're in the middle of the book.
Right, yeah.
Let me finish it for you. Y'all are gross, but it's cool because we're here for the worst human punishments in human history. The worst.
Worst.
No. Only the worst. We only did one part. We did worst.
Like a sausage.
Oh, I love that joke. It's one of my favorites. Look at you. So yeah, this is actually the top 5. So this is the most worst of the worst.
Look at his little entrails.
Yeah, we ended with
like,
impalement.
His entrails like spilling out.
I know. So we ended with impalement. I think where we're going, hopefully, is eyeball torture. It's got to get worse.
I'll puke.
It's got to get worse. And you lived through that.
I can't do eyeball things.
Here we go.
Number 5.
All right.
Poena Cullei.
What?
Poena Cullei is Latin for penalty of the sack.
Hauling people around by their ball sacks.
Ooh.
Stretching ball sacks
Ooh.
extravagantly.
Oh, no.
Bow tying ball sacks. What do you got? I'm stuck in ball sacks.
I can tell. I was just gonna let you keep going. They put you in a sack with a bunch of nails. Okay. And then they drag you by horse. They put you in the sack, tie you up, and then have a horse drag the sack.
It's disgusting. Something's wrong with this. It's gross.
And that's exactly what it was.
What is it?
Just a lot more terrifying and cruel. This was an exclusive punishment for anyone that would murder their own family members. This was first seen in the 2nd century in Rome, but would later be used by the Germans in the 18th century.
Okay.
This all begins with a convicted murderer being placed inside a thick leather bag.
Okay.
But just to make sure the man isn't lonely, they would then add a dog, a rooster, a viper, and a monkey. I don't know what these animals did to deserve this, but hey, at least the evil family murderer doesn't die alone. Once all the animals are added inside the bag, it is then sewn shut, creating an almost airtight seal. Now you would think this would be horrible enough, but no, this is just the beginning. Because as soon as the bag is sewn shut, it is then tossed into the ocean.
Okay, there it is. There's the kicker. I was like, where's the part where it gets bad? That gets bad. That's bad.
Damn.
Yeah, that's fucked up.
Don't worry. Later on, these murderers would be given the option to either be placed inside the leather bag or be sent to perform at the Colosseum, where they can perform the act of being mauled to death in front of all of their loved ones and peers.
Definitely Colosseum.
At least they had the option. Number 4, rats. This is one of the most sick punishments.
He gave us excruciating detail about the impalement. And that's all the details we get about the sack?
He must be saving it. Because this is halfway through the vid.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
All right. That's fine. My question is,
cool.
How did you find that much leather? Like, it has to be a big-ass leather, like
all
a big-ass leather thing.
Animals.
But I'm saying it has to be huge to fit a human being and all that other shit.
Yeah, man.
It's like the whole cow.
Is that what you're stuck on right now? Is how big the sack is? That's incredible.
It's not the something of the something. It's the size of the sack that holds you.
It's not the size of the sack. It's the
size of the sack.
It's in all of human history, and it involves the use of rats. I will cover 2 of them here as they are very similar. The first use of this form of punishment dates back to 1568 during the 80 Years' War. A Dutch leader named Diederik Sonoy would often use this method of punishment, which involved placing a rat inside of a clay bowl, then placing it topside down on a prisoner's stomach, chest, face, or groin. Then the back of the bowl would be heated with either a torch or some coals, causing the rat to go into a full-on panic, trying to escape from the heat, and its only way out was to burrow into the human. Once inside, it would continue to chew and tear apart whatever was in its way, desperately searching for a way out. Eventually, the rat finds its way out of the maze and survives.
The maze?
The same could not be said for the prisoner.
Oh my God!
But the second method was much, much worse.
How? Bro, That's pretty bad. I learned about that one from the Rush Hour. Is it Rush Hour? Or is it the racing movie?
What are you talking about?
Yeah, there's like a mobster. He's got like a metal bucket, and he grabs a rat, and he puts it on the guy's stomach and then heats it up, and the rat like starts tearing into his stomach. Yeah. It's pretty hardcore. You guys seen this scene.
If you know the name of the movie, comment it down below.
Man. Yeah. It's a good movie, too.
And was highly secretive since it was used under the guidance of the dictator Augusto Pinochet, where he held power from 1976 through 1983. Damn. They called it the rectoscope. And I'm sure you have already figured out where this is going. Yes, it's exactly what you think. They would place a tube on a prisoner's back door, then insert a rat inside of the tube. The rat would then begin to burrow its way in. These people were so sick that they actually expected the prisoners to answer questions while this was going on. Eventually, the rat would find its way in and begin to move forward to find its way out. Nobody really knows how many people died from this punishment, but we do know that a ton of people went missing when this dictator was in charge. Number 3, Gibbeting. Crazy. The last known use was in the early 1900s in Afghanistan. This all came to light in 1921 when the National Geographic published this image in their magazine. This was also used in the United States from time to time during the 17th and 18th century. One notable example was in Boston, Massachusetts, where a few pirates were hung at the Boston Harbor, which served as a warning to any sailors that were approaching Boston. Now let's talk about England, since they love this form of punishment so much. Of course they do. In England, this was used on traitors, murderers, pirates, and thieves. But after the year 1752, the Murder Act was passed, which required that all convicted murderers must be put to death by being publicly dissected or by gibbeting of some sort. That's right. And over 134 confirmed people met this fate. Damn. The most common form of gibbeting were actually cages, and they looked like this. It was an all-steel cage that was shaped tightly to the form of a human body, which was so tight that it would not allow the person inside to move. They were then hung 30 feet or more off the floor, usually on a public road or water hole, to ensure that the most amount of people could witness this monstrosity. But I can only assume this was more annoying than anything, since every time you get thirsty and needed to fill up your container of water, you would have to deal with the dying man begging you for a sip. Over here! But the annoyance and torture of the public didn't stop there, because after the criminals would die in the cages, the body would be left inside to rot for years and years on end, with the locals complaining that the smell of death was so pungent that they couldn't even sleep at night. There's even been reports that some human remains stayed inside of these cages for over 20 years before a government official would finally remember to clean it out.
That seems like it's more of a punishment for the freaking populace than for the person.
Yeah, I remember a story, and I don't even know if it's true or not now, but a story of like this rich girl getting courted, and they went out to a park, and they couldn't even enjoy themselves. It was literally a dead body hanging like right there in the best part of the park. But it was trying to like discourage people from being pirates.
Right.
You know what I mean? And pirating was a kind of a big deal. But it also didn't discourage people from being pirates. All the people who didn't really want to be pirates just weren't fucking pirates. Really, this time. Like, for realsies. Yeah. Then the people who was pirates was fucking pirates, dog.
The most piratey-est of pirates.
They found the most piratey pirates.
Yeah.
No, they was ready for the shits.
Yeah.
That's how you know all the pirate stories is real as fuck. Because they saw this. They walked through the park, smelt this rotten motherfucker, was like, I'm still hitting the high seas.
Right. Couldn't be me, though. I'm built different.
Just the most confident, boisterous. Bro, scurvy, my nuts. I'm out here.
They said I'm Gold D. Roger in this bitch.
For real.
Number 2, Scaphism. This was a form of punishment that was used by the ancient Persian Empire on anyone that would be convicted of murder. First, the criminal would be placed inside of a boat on their backs and tied down. The boat had 4 holes cut out so that the person's arms and legs would be outside of the boat and in the water. They were then force-fed large quantities of
honey, sweet, like fermented fruits, wine. Oh my gosh.
Honey and milk until their stomachs were visibly full. They would then proceed to lather their entire body with the milk and honey as well. After all these steps were completed, he was then pushed out to the middle of the lake where he was completely exposed to the heat of the sun. But the sun would soon become the least of his worries. You see, the reason they fed him milk and honey was not because it was a great last meal, but because this combination causes the person to get extreme diarrhea, which mixed with the sweet honey attracts rodents, bugs, wasps, bees, flies, and whatever other animals live near the lake. After being tormented by the animals throughout the entire night, you would think that the daytime maybe gets a little better. No, because as soon as the sun rises the following day, the person inside of the boat gets another gigantic meal of milk and honey and an additional lathering.
I didn't know that.
This would be done on a daily basis to prolong the punishment for as long as possible.
Oh, I didn't know. I thought it was one and done.
Yeah.
I thought they just let them sit out in the sun.
And die.
They reel them back in.
Damn.
And what's fucked up about this is that it's cheap.
Right.
It's very cheap to use some rope. They got boats. Milk, honey, this is not expensive.
I feel like the worst part about it would be being so sticky.
That's cold-blooded. That's cold to say that. That's cold. It's definitely the maggots crawling out of your ass. That's definitely the worst part.
I just don't like
That's for sure the worst part. I guarantee it.
It was also well documented that the rodents would continuously attempt to burrow inside of the person through their back door. They were probably trying to get a head start on their next meal. A writer named John Sonaris wrote in great detail about one of these incidents. Whoa. He would go on to say that it was one of the most horrid and cruel forms of punishment since it was terribly long and seemed to have no end in sight. He wrote about a man who survived for an entire 17 days before he finally died from his wounds. Apparently, the man spent his last few days with his entire face completely covered with wasps, and his flesh rotting away filled with swarms of parasites and worms, all while being covered in his own filth. Number 1.
Alrighty.
All right, we have to...
17 days.
Okay, we gotta, hold on, let me reset my chakras.
Yeah.
Because that was disgusting,
that was horrid.
and I'm not ready for number 1.
Okay.
All right,
let's do it.
The oubliette. Oubliette simply means to forget in French.
Yes.
This was a punishment that was used in many places throughout history, including in the London Tower, which had a small and confined room called Little Ease. Not only was this room pitch black, it was also so small that prisoners could not sit, stand, or lay down while inside it.
Yeah, I've seen this depicted in like a couple anime.
They would be left in this uncomfortable position for days on end. One of the most famous oubliettes is not the one in the London Tower, but in the neighboring district of Warwick, inside of Warwick Castle. Here, deep underground in the castle's dungeons, is a very small and narrow cell, completely made of stone, which has a metal door to close it shut. Prisoners were tossed inside of the cell and forgotten about, as the name implies.
Yeah.
The prisoner would just have to sit there and wait for their inevitable death, which usually came in a few days from dehydration or starvation. Now, of course, this would be the best case scenario, because in reality, most of the time there would already be a rotting corpse inside of the cell to keep the new prisoner company. The previous occupier of the cell would serve as a daily reminder of his upcoming fate. But that's not the only companions that he will have, since the underground dungeons are completely infested with rats that have developed a taste for human flesh.
So many of these involve rodents.
Yeah, I just never realized, I was thinking Black Plague, that's where the rats peaked.
Yeah.
Torture.
Yeah.
That's the unsung hero. What the fuck, rats?
Dude.
Damn.
There's more. These oubliettes existed in many of the castles throughout Europe, and in recent times, they have actually discovered these dungeons with dozens, if not hundreds, of human remains inside of it, as proof that they were hardly ever cleaned. Like in Leap Castle of Ireland, where in 1900, during the castle's renovation, a worker found a small opening behind a wall inside of the chapel.
Right.
This hole had an 8-foot drop that led to a large oubliette. And what the worker found inside shocked him, since it was filled with so many skeletons that they needed multiple cartloads to clear it all out. But just when you think the section is over, it just keeps on giving.
Okay.
You see, there's been many stories of men who have been placed inside one of these dungeons and kept alive for years and years on end, surviving off crumbs of food and minimal amounts of water, prolonging their inevitable demise for as long as humanly possible.
Why would you do that?
These cells were sometimes even placed on ground level so they can hear the voices and laughter of the people outside.
Damn.
An experience that they will never get again in this lifetime.
Because they're dead.
Somehow I feel like that's not worse than the Scaphism thing. Like, it's bad. Don't get me wrong.
Okay, I'm having a hard time because I definitely disassociated for the last half of that thing. That's that thought of being alone for days and days on end.
Yeah.
Just I daydreamed about like what I would do, how I'd convince myself to not commit suicide daily. With that being said,
that wasn't dark at all.
Enjoyed that walk down history. A very recent history, by the way. I had an interesting discussion with a professor, and I discussed how, hey, we never get a timeline with how with all of history collected together. I know I talked to you about that. I felt really strongly about that.
Yeah.
And he said it's because so many terrible things happen in such a close amount of time. We don't like people to be able to reference that easily.
Yeah.
He's like, I really would like people to forget when I'm trying to teach you about, technological advances. I don't want you to be thinking about how we use that to kill millions of people in that short amount of time.
Something that I really do like about this video is how he does say, oh, the most recent time it was used was this. The earliest documented time was this. Because it kind of just gives you a scale of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed that. I'm shook for the night. I'm done. So I'm going to go to bed.
If you did enjoy that, stop it. Get some help.
We're gonna be back to Good Enough. I'll probably be back alone to Good Enough. I can't see my wife joining me in that, but you can join us in
after this. After this, you want me to come back?
You could join us for a Lindsay video in a couple days. We'll probably shoot it, put it up a couple days after that, and also I really wanted to invite you for like one of those like mini pizzas. You go in, you build the toppings, and like you bake it, and then you come out with like all the things.
Like an easy bake oven?
No, like
a Lunchable.
What the fuck, man? No, like an actual restaurant you go to. You need an easy bake oven. What the hell? I'm an adult. I'm a grown man. You better not feed me a Lunchable. Get out of here. Get out. Leave. I'm done. You don't feed me a Lunchable. What is happening? I'm married to you.
Bye, guys.